Ignore my shirt and my messy studio. I am just in a very lazy mode today. Anyways, I am really excited because I am releasing my first official dress pattern, the penny dress. So a key feature of the dress is definitely the lace-up back and the side gathering. I have a separate video showing you different techniques on how to gather, so I do encourage you to watch that first. And of course, the pattern is available on toothandeye.com. Anyways, let's get into it. By using either my color-coded tutorial or my layered PDF tutorial, cut out and assemble your pattern. Once assembled, you should have a top piece, a front piece, and a back piece. Fold your fabric in half and cut each piece out on fold, being conscious of the grain of the fabric. Repeat with the lining. Make sure to shorten the skirt lining by 7 centimeters or 2.75 inches. On both the main fabric and your lining, mark out your darts. I like to mark the end point with a pin and the starting point with little cuts into the seam allowance. Prepare your ties for the lace-up in the back. You can either make your own using my tutorial, or you can use pre-existing ties. Taking the full length, cut that in half. Then, off of each piece, cut 4 6cm or 2.5 inch pieces from each strap, for a total of 8 pieces to be used for loops. Set these aside for now. Taking your top piece, sew your darts. Repeat for the lining. If you have a serger, feel free to serge all the raw edges of every piece of this pattern. This includes the front piece, back piece, as well as the lining. Now grab 4 of your loop pieces. Taking one of the pieces, line it up on the edge of your top piece, just below the dart. Pin it in place. Fold it in half and pin the other side, either on top or right below that. For the next loop, leave room and maybe a smidge extra for the seam allowance, which is 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch from the bottom of the top. And pin in place. The next loop will be placed between those two, and the final loop will be placed above that at the same distance. You can easily mark the final loop by folding the fabric in half here. Your loops should look roughly like this. Now repeat the same thing on the other side. Now let's add the straps. Taking one end of one of the straps, pin it slightly to the inside of one of the top corners. You want the strap to be facing straight down from the top seam. Repeat on the other side for the other strap. Either by hand or machine, sew each strap and loop in place. Now we will attach the top lining. Lay your top out flat, right side facing up. Roll up your straps and place them in the middle like this. You can even pin them to prevent them from moving around. Now place the lining on top, right sides together. Line everything up, including the darts, and pin along all the edges, including the bottom. Then, using a 1.5 centimeter or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, sew along the edges, leaving the bottom open. Be careful not to sew over the sides of the loops when sewing around the dart area. Once that's finished, flip everything right side out. Double check to make sure everything looks good. This area here can be a bit of a problem area. Make sure all your loops are faced out as close to how I have them as possible. Gently press on all the edges so everything looks neat and clean. Set this aside and we'll move on to the skirt portion. Lay your front piece down face up. Then line up your back piece right sides together. the back piece is slightly wider than the front. Pin both sides, keeping track of what side's the right side. Taking the left side, we will mark out where the zipper will go. Starting from the top of the skirt, measure down and mark out your seam allowance. This is where the top of the zipper will sit. Starting from the top of the zipper, line it up along the edge and place a marker just above the zipper stop. Starting from that marker, sew all the way down the skirt, leaving that top portion open. Sew the other side of the skirt together as well. Now you'll want to repeat for the lining, except you want to do opposite sides. So if your main fabric is inside out and the front piece is facing you, the zipper hole should be on the right side. And if your lining is inside out and the front piece is facing you, the zipper hole should be on the left side. This might seem confusing, but just trust me on this. Next, we'll sew the hem. For your main fabric, fold the hem on the inside by 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. For your lining, fold the hem on the opposite way, so that the inner seams will be exposed. This just makes it look a little cleaner later. Now straight stitch both hems. Now we will attach the top to the skirt portion. Flip the main fabric of your skirt right side out and have the front portion facing you. Fold the front waist portion in half and mark the center point. That's the narrower side. Starting from the zipper hole, mark out your 1.5 centimeter or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then, on the top piece, find the center point of the waist. As you can see, I've tied up the straps to keep them out of the way. Then pin the front of the top to the front of the skirt. Lining up the middle points and lining up the sides with the side seam and the seam allowance marker on the zipper side. Starting from the zipper side, take your lining, front side facing down, start pinning it to the main part of the skirt. Make sure the seams are lined up on the sides, and the top portion is sandwiched in between the two layers. You will have to flip the top and the main portion of the skirt into the inside of the lining to finish pinning the rest. Once that's pinned, sew all along the edge using your 1.5 centimeter or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. When sewing the 4 layers together, sew the seams folded out flat and be careful not to accidentally sew the loops. Once finished, it should look like this. To flip it right side out, pull the top portion and flip the lining onto the inside. If you have a preferred method of adding the zipper, do that now. If not, I will show you my method for adding a zipper to a skirt with lining. Flip your dress out and pull the lining away from the main part of the dress. Find the zipper opening on the main fabric of your dress. Take your zipper and line it up at the top seam where the lining meets the main fabric. On the front side of the fabric, pin in place, making sure the zipper isn't too high, as you want the lining to be able to fold over it in the next step. Sew your zipper in place. If you need a more detailed tutorial on how to do this, check out my skater skirt tutorial. Once that's sewn in place, make sure the zipper lays nicely before moving on to the next step. Otherwise, it will be too hard to fix later. Open up your zipper. Then with your fabric right sides together, start folding the lining over the zipper, lining it up with the edge of the main fabric, making sure to fold the zipper tails towards you. Pin all the way down until you get to the zipper pull. Then repeat on the other side of the zipper. Once that's all pinned, straight stitch down the edges, making sure not to catch the zipper teeth. Once you get close to the zipper pull, backstitch a couple times to make sure everything stays in place. Once the lining is fully attached to the zipper, fold the lining over and flip the dress right side out. Then flip the top corners of the zipper out. This is what it should look like on the inside. Nice and clean and hides all your seams. If you'd like, you could stop here and have a super cute A-line style dress, or we can move on to ruching the side. Check out my separate gathering tutorial to decide on what style of ruching you want to do. If you're an absolute beginner, I recommend doing the hand gathering style or using an elastic. But for this tutorial, I will be gathering using ties and a casing. Before ruching, you will have to sew the main fabric to the lining. On the non-zipper side, sew the layers of fabric together along the side seam. If you're hand gathering or using an elastic, do that over the seam you just sewed, but continue all the way down to the bottom of the skirt. If you're using a casing, you'll want to hand tack the bottom of the lining to the inner seam of the main fabric. To find the length of the casing, measure the full length of the side seam and add a couple centimeters or inches. Create your casing out of matching fabric and serge all the edges except the bottom. Then you'll want to create a tie that's double the length of the casing. I have also made this out of matching fabric. I will be doing this part slightly different from my gathering tutorial. As you can see, I'm starting on the top layer of the dress and sewing the middle seam of the casing first. I also started the casing about 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the top of the skirt. Once you get near the bottom, stop a couple centimeters or an inch or so before the very end. This is so we can trim the very end and have it line up with the hem of the skirt. Then serge the end and continue that middle seam all the way down to the bottom, making sure to backstitch a couple times. Then flip the dress inside out and sew down the two edges of the casing. Once finished, it should look something like this. You can see where I started the casing a little bit lower than the top of the side seam, and then it goes all the way down to the bottom of the hem. And it should look like this from the outside. Then all you have to do is thread your tie from one side of the bottom all the way up through the top and down through the other side. Tie off the ends of your ties with knots and trim the ends. Feel free to tack down the top of the tie here. Then all you have to do is scrunch it up and tie it off. Whatever style of ruching or gathering you've decided on, you want it to scrunch up to be about 2/3 or half the length of the side seam. And finally, we will lace up the back. All you have to do is take your straps and zigzag them back and forth through the loops. And now you're ready to take your new penny dress out into the wild. You can easily style this on its own for an adorable summer look, or feel free to jazz it up with some layers to keep warm in the fall and winter. Well, I hope I made that as straightforward and beginner-friendly as possible. It is technically a slightly intermediate pattern, so it's more so like experienced beginner to intermediate. Anyways, if you have any questions, definitely ask me and I will do my best to help you. I would also love to see your creations, so don't forget to tag me on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, if you are interested in my personal life living in South Korea, I have a vlog channel as well. Anyways, I love you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.